Welcome to the Blur. Okay, let's unpack this. Our sources today, well, they plunge us straight into the thick of it.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, picture this. Flying blind through a brutal storm, wind just screaming, and all the while knowing these deadly dark wielders could be right below you.
Terrifying. It sets the scene immediately. We're talking a war college under siege, right?
Uh-huh.
And then this journey across treacherous isles.
Exactly. So we've got these personal accounts, firsthand experiences detailing the siege, the storms, this journey. And our mission today really is to distill the most pressing threats they're facing and, crucially, the alliances they're scrambling to build.
Right, the core dangers and the potential help. So looking at the immediate threats, what really jumps out from these accounts?
Well, first off, those storms we mentioned, they're not just bad weather, they're seriously hindering patrols, making it hard to spot these dark wielders.
These shadowy magic users.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not some distant threat, they're actively being hunted near the college. But it's not just external enemies, you know.
So internal problems too.
Definitely. We see real friction, like pretty heated arguments between a rider and their dragon, Tairn, about safety versus duty, and accusations flying around Imogen thinking someone's leaking information.
That kind of internal tension, especially with key figures arguing, that's a
Yeah.
huge vulnerability when you're already under siege.
It really is. And then there's this other layer, apparently a secret sort of rebellion, or maybe just an independent mission to save someone named Xaden.
A personal rescue often amidst all this chaos. High stakes.
Very high stakes. Plus, get this, they discover enemies have infiltrated, disguised as scribes.
Wow, okay, so spies inside the wire. That shows a certain level of cunning from the enemy.
And adding to all that pressure, there's apparently a 6-month timeline. 6 months until the magical wards protecting their base, Aretian, just collapse.
6 months. Okay, that creates a serious sense of urgency. They need solutions. Fast.
And the internal mess continues. There's deep distrust between different factions. Someone named Aura is accusing others, Dane specifically, and people who supposedly desert it.
So blame games are starting.
Yeah.
Not good for morale or unity.
Not at all. They've even captured one of the enemy of Venin, someone who corrupts the land for power, it sounds like, named Jack. They're interrogating him, trying to get intel on figures called sages.
Then, sages. Lots of unknown factors here. And interrogation suggests desperation for answers.
Yeah, and someone's even facing a trial for treason. The stakes just keep getting higher. The impact stretches beyond the college, too. A village called Zellyhna has fallen. People are worried about family in Newhall, about poor-mish civilians.
It shows the conflict isn't isolated. It's having real-world consequences for ordinary people.
And they're taking big risks for each other, like a dangerous mission to extract Marin's family. Then, during the journey across the Isles, they get attacked by Wyvern.
Just adding external threats on top of everything else.
But here's the real kicker. They find out these dark wielders, they have the same abilities as our main characters and their allies.
Wait, the same powers? That's a massive development. Suddenly, any perceived advantage they might have had is gone.
Exactly. It completely changes the game. But, you know, even with all this darkness, there are glimmers of hope. Attempts at connection. They're negotiating with Aretian, offering pardons to fighters.
Trying to mend fences, bring people back into the fold. Makes sense.
And even Andarna, this important dragon, is making demands that are being negotiated. Suggests she's a key player. Then there's this huge mission. Find Andarna's kind.
Right, the Irids, wasn't it? Some kind of ancient dragon relatives?
Yeah, potentially. The hope is they can help reinforce those failing wards. Jasinia's research points them towards the southernmost isle of Deverelli.
Okay, so a concrete objective amidst the chaos. Find the Irids, fix the wards. But Deverelli sounds politically complicated.
Oh, definitely. They have to deal with King Cortland and this Duke of Tyrrendor, Halden, who seems pretty suspicious of them. Lots of tension, lots of mistrust there.
Sounds like walking a tightrope.
Totally. But they managed to strike a deal with the king. It involves some kind of power demonstration and offering up a rarest treasure, fragile alliance, maybe?
Very transactional, it sounds like, based on immediate needs and maybe not long-term trust.
And they also gain an army from a place called Zellyhna, although it came at the cost of losing a rider. Sacrifices are being made for these alliances.
Always a cost. Nothing comes easy here.
So after Deverelli, they get a map and start searching smaller isles for these Irids, and they actually find them.
They do. Wow. What was that encounter like?
Complex. Very complex. The Irids aren't just, waiting to help. They have their own concerns, especially about human wielders. They specifically mention powers related to ice, lightning, and some dangerous power given to a human.
Ooh, that's specific. Ice and lightning. And a dangerous gift. It suggests the Irids know more about these powers, maybe their history or risks, than the humans do. Adds a whole new layer.
It really does. On other fronts, they're also trying to build a diplomatic tie with Loisem, even if they can't offer military help. And maybe the biggest political move, an alliance is sealed with Tyrrendor through a marriage contract.
A marriage contract. Okay, so personal lives and political strategy are completely intertwined now. That's classic high-stakes maneuvering.
Absolutely. So, wrapping it up, the key takeaways here. The threats are immediate and multiplying. These dark wielders mirroring their powers, the wards collapsing soon, serious internal divisions.
Yeah.
It's grim.
But countering that, they are actively forging alliances, even if they're complicated. Aretian, Deverelli, and Tyrrendor, through that deal and marriage, potentially these wary Irids, Zellyhna.
Right. It's a race against time on multiple fronts. What I found really surprising, though, was the Irids' reaction. Not just generic reluctance, but specific warnings about specific human powers.
Yeah, that detail about ice, lightning, and the dangerous gift really stands out. It hints at a much deeper, perhaps troubling history there.
So for you, the listener, understanding these threats, the sheer immediacy of them, and the very fragile, often transactional nature of these alliances being formed, that's critical context. It really sets the stage for whatever happens next.
And it leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Are these alliances, cobbled together out of desperation, political maneuvering, and maybe some shared hope, actually going to be enough? Will they hold against the enemies without and the tensions within? Or are we going to see betrayals or just limitations that lead to even bigger problems down the line? Something to really think about.
And the goal today is to get right to the heart of it, right? Understand the key parts of the story without needing the whole book in front of it.
Exactly. We want to unpack the narrative, the people, the ideas sort of bubbling underneath.
And even just looking at these pieces, you get this strong sense of, well, a world at war.
Ew, definitely. And these incredibly intense bonds, writer and dragon, and the tough choices people are making when the odds just seem impossible.
Yeah, the excerpts really lean into the dialogue and action, giving us that raw feel.
It throws you right in.
Okay, so let's dive into the story itself then. From what we see here, it feels like we're smack in the middle of a massive conflict.
Yeah, it's pervasive. You've got these external threats, the dark wielders, the venin.
And that mention of a potential war with Dracis, too, it hangs over everything.
Right, and it's not just external. There are these internal conflicts, too.
Yeah.
Issues of trust, who should lead, what this power everyone's grappling with really means.
It creates this real sense of urgency, doesn't it? Especially with the talk about the wards failing.
Absolutely. The wards failing is like the ticking clock in the background. They have to find a solution, find answers. It drives so much of the action.
And right at the center, we've got Violet Sorrengail. She really jumps out immediately. Even small things like fixing her saddle, using her dagger.
Yeah.
She's not just waiting around.
No, not at all. That resourcefulness, even in those small moments you mentioned, it shows her agency, She finds ways to act, to solve problems, even when she's physically maybe not the strongest.
Yeah, she had those physical limitations mentioned, the pain, the knee injury, but she pushes through.
Exactly. And it highlights her resilience. She takes these massive risks, leading that rebellion they mentioned, going off to Deverelli, facing down someone like Theophany.
But you also feel her internal struggle, right?
Yeah.
The fear for the people she loves, figuring out her own power.
Definitely. It makes her feel very real, despite the fantasy setting.
And her bond with Tern.
Yeah.
Wow. It's sharp, kind of sarcastic banter.
Yeah, the banter's great.
But underneath, there's this absolute rock-solid trust. How does that play out?
Well, Tern is. He's fiercely protective, not just of Violet, but Andarna, too. He's got opinions, He's not just a mount.
Right. His grumbling and retorts, it's like a whole other character.
Exactly. And his sheer power, the fire, the landings, it's a constant reminder of what Violet's connected to, what she has to manage. Their bond is, well, it's fundamental to how writers work in this world. It's this unique reliance.
Okay, then there's Xaden Ryerson. He's got that leader vibe, but also mystery, secrets.
He's complex, very protective of Violet. You see that repeatedly, even worrying about, where she sleeps.
Because it's more than just romance there.
I think so. It feels like responsibility, too.
Yeah.
He leads the Aretian writers. He seems to understand the dangers in a maybe deeper way.
And his own power, the shadows,
yeah.
plus his father's history, that adds layers.
Absolutely. It makes him powerful, but also an outsider. There's distrust there from some corners, and this internal struggle they hint at about him potentially turning. It's a major source of tension.
And we can't forget Andarna, the young dragon. Golden feather tail, irid scorpion tail. She sounds amazing.
She does. And she's so eager, wants to be involved in everything, like patrols.
Seems kind of innocent, almost.
In a way, but there's more to it. Her uniqueness, the search for her kind. It feels really important, like she's key to something bigger, maybe the wards.
And her bond with Violet seems just as strong, refusing to leave her side.
Exactly. She's not just a dragon, she's Violet's second dragon, and that seems significant.
Beyond them, we get these flashes of other characters, allies like Riok.
Yeah, Rhi seems really supportive, strategic. Riok, loyal, worried for Violet.
Imogen, helping in secret. Garrick, loyal to Xaden.
Right, they flesh out the factions and the support networks, and then you have the more complicated figures.
Like Haldan the Prince. There's tension there with Xaden.
Definitely. And Theophany, the dark wielder hunting Violet, she feels like a direct personal threat.
And King Cortland and Deverelli, he sounded unpredictable.
Very. He adds that political instability, that danger you can't easily fight with just swords or dragonfire. These supporting characters really round out the world and raise the stakes.
Let's talk about that world. Basgiath, the War College, sounds brutal. The Vale, Aretian, Deverelli, Umbriel. These different places. How does the setting work here?
Oh, the setting is almost another character, Basgiath, with those constant storms. It just mirrors the harshness of their lives, the constant pressure.
Creates a really oppressive atmosphere.
Yeah, and each place has its own feel, right? Aretian, the rebel stronghold. Deverelli, this island kingdom with its own rules, its own secrets. Umbriel, another stop on this quest. It gives the story scale and texture.
And we see it all through Violet's eyes. First person.
Which is crucial. It pulls you right into her head. You feel her fear, her confusion, her determination directly.
Makes the reveals more impactful, too, since we only know what she knows.
Exactly. It shapes the whole experience, builds suspense.
So looking at the plot points in these excerpts, it's just relentless. Training, storms, hunting dark wielders.
Yeah, it escalates quickly. The initial survival stuff at the college broadens out. You've got the tension around Xaden and the Aretians. That's a big thread.
Violet getting pulled into that rebellion.
Right, and discovering the scribes are compromised. That shows the enemy is already inside.
Then the whole quest, driven by the failing wards in Andarna's kind, that takes them to Deverelli.
Which involves all that tricky negotiation with King Cortland and Haldan. And then off to other isles, searching for the Irids.
And finding them. What were the revelations there?
Well, we get hints about their history, their view of riders, which might not be entirely friendly, or at least it's complicated.
Oh, well, Theophany is still hunting Violet.
Exactly. Plus battles, sieges, like defending that city. It's nonstop action and stakes.
And woven through all that big stuff are these really personal moments. Violet and Xaden getting closer.
Those moments really ground it.
But also loss, like Traeger mentioned. And then Andarna leaving. That must hit hard.
Absolutely. Those personal stakes, love, loss, separation, they make the bigger war feel much more immediate, more meaningful. You care because they care, and they're losing things.
Looking at the conflict overall, it really does seem layered.
Totally. You've got the big external stuff, the venin, the dark wielders, the political maneuvering with Dreyfus, Navarre, Deverelli.
But then so much internal struggle, too.
Right. Violet figuring out who she is, what her power means, dealing with her fear, Xaden fighting whatever's happening to him, fighting prejudice.
And just the friction between people. The different factions, the leaders.
Yeah, the interpersonal conflicts are huge. Trust is fragile, power shifts. It's all happening under the pressure of war.
And as you said, no easy resolution in these pieces, it feels like, steps forward. But the main dangers are still very much there.
Exactly. They gain info, make an alliance maybe with Zellyhna, but Theophany's out there, the wards aren't fixed, Xaden's situation is unresolved. It leaves you hanging, wanting to know what's next.
Something else that really struck me was the language, the use of metaphor.
Yeah.
It's really vivid.
Oh, yeah. The writing uses that really effectively, like walls of white for the storm. You instantly feel that, don't you?
Yeah, much more than just heavy snow. Or Cairn twisting his neck like a snake.
Right. It adds that sense of power, maybe a little bit of alien danger, and describing shadows as having physical presence.
Makes Xaden's power feel more real, more impactful.
Exactly. And the descriptions of pain, too. Embers, daggers, star-bright agony. It makes Violet's struggles visceral. These metaphors aren't just decoration. They make the world and the experience more immersive.
So, pulling it all together then.
Yeah.
These snippets of Onyx Storm, paint this picture of a really intense fantasy world. You've got these complex characters, deep relationships, all under the shadow of this huge threat.
Yeah, it's exploring loyalty, sacrifice, what power costs, and just the raw fight for survival.
And hopefully, for you listening, this deep dive gives you that solid grasp of the story, the people, the conflicts, like you were looking for.
We hope so. It's definitely a rich world, even in these excerpts.
Okay, so here's a final thought to maybe chew on. We know riders and dragons have this unique bond, essential for survival in many ways. With Andarna now gone, separated from Violet, what does that mean for Violet long-term?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Not just emotionally, but her power,
Yeah.
her role in this fight, losing that second bond. How does that change things? Definitely something to think about if you decide to explore the full story further.
A really compelling question to end on. That prologue, wow. It just grabs you, doesn't it? Violet arguing with Terran, this brutal storm all around them, and they're desperately trying to find Rydok and Aotrim in, like a total whiteout. High stakes from page 1.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's so great about Onyx Storm, I think. It balances these really intense personal moments, the arguments, the relationships, with these massive conflicts and escalating dangers. So our aim here is to really pull out the key stuff, the core insights for you, so you get a real feel for the story, find those aha moments without getting lost in every single detail.
Exactly. We've looked at excerpts covering, well, pretty much everything. Personal fights, big battle strategies, the whole range. Okay, so let's jump in. Right at the start, we see that complex Violet-Terran relationship, yeah?
Yeah.
Her trying to be independent, him being, well, Terran, protective.
Definitely. And it's nuanced, isn't it? Like Terran's comment about her falling off.
Didn't fall off. Right. And Violet immediately jumps in, no, I jumped off to help Sawyer. It's not just witty banter. It really shows her courage, her instinct to help, even when things are bad. And then you have Andarna, eager to join patrols.
Even the youngest ones are right in the thick of it.
It shows the constant threat, how fast they have to adapt.
And Terran, even then, he's thinking bigger picture, right?
Right.
Worried the storm is stopping the search for the dark wielders?
Yes, that layering of threats is key. You've got the immediate danger, the blizzard, missing friends, but also this constant underlying venin threat. Survival isn't just about fighting, it's about navigating this world where danger comes from, well, everywhere.
Then they land, and it's rough. Violet's clearly hurt.
But she just shoves it down, doesn't she?
Yeah, just gets on with it. Like there's no time to even acknowledge pain.
That resilience is so central to her character. And think about why. In that world, showing weakness, that could be fatal. So her ability to just compartmentalize, it highlights the pressure these riders are under. It takes incredible strength just to survive.
And Terran grumbling about a 22-year-old dragon arguing. Classic.
Totally classic Terran. But underneath, he's worried about Andarna. He lets Violet carry more weight for her. It shows that protectiveness is growing beyond just Violet.
Then the rest of the squad appears. Rise smile. Imogen immediately getting sharp about Mira.
Yeah, and Rydok giving Terran a wide berth. You feel Terran's presence, don't you?
Definitely. Those little moments paint such a quick picture of who they are, where the tensions might be.
And they're important moments. Imogen worried about treason, Violet secretly trying to save Xaden. It sets up that core conflict straight away. Loyalty to the rules versus loyalty to people, to your own beliefs. How far will they go? What are the risks?
And that tension really ramps up when they find those disguised dark wielders, the ones feeding on scribes. Ugh.
It's grim, isn't it? And it's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
The enemy isn't just outside the walls, they've infiltrated.
And Violet spots them, uses that alloy dagger. We see how capable she is.
Right, her perception, noticing the scribe's weird behavior, that's key. It's not just about fighting. And the dagger itself, disrupting their magic, that's crucial technology in this fight.
So that discovery changes things. Leads to the debrief with Panchek, the mission to rescue Barlow, and importantly, the wardstone.
Exactly. It shifts from dealing with maybe individual threats to a major strategic objective. The wardstones are everything, if one's compromised.
The whole defense is at risk.
Precisely. The venin are getting bolder, hitting where it really hurts.
And alongside this huge external threat, there's Violet trying to connect with Xaden, who's just shut down.
Yeah, that emotional distance is a big source of conflict for them.
The whole awkward sleeping arrangements thing with Imogen trying to help,
Yeah.
it just highlights the strain, doesn't it?
It does. Xaden's so guarded, probably because of his past, the weight he carries. And Violet needs that connection. Imogen trying to mediate just shows how close that inner circle is, but also how difficult things are. How long can they keep that distance up, you know?
Then there's Andarna. She's young, but she's making demands, negotiating through Llewellyn, Captain Grady.
She's becoming a real player, isn't she? Not just a hatchling. She has agency. It's fascinating.
And the threat to Oricia's wardstone, plus Mira blaming Brennan. That throws in family drama and politics, too.
Yeah, Mira's accusations hint at old conflicts, maybe disagreements going way back about how to handle things. And that weakening wardstone just keeps ticking like a clock, raising the stakes.
We also see splits within the riders themselves. Aura, hostile to the ones who left and came back with, quote, the enemy.
And Dane defending them.
Right. It shows loyalty isn't straightforward. People have different ideas about what's right, who to trust.
The internal conflict is really important. Aura represents the old guard, maybe.
Yeah.
Suspicious, sticking to tradition. Dane seems more pragmatic. Survival might mean making uncomfortable choices, breaking rules. Adds another layer of tension.
Okay, let's talk missions and sacrifices. Poromil, gonna get Marin's family, even invoking Article 8.
That's a big deal, Article 8. It's basically saying the situation is so dire, normal rules are out the window. The cost of not acting is higher than the risk of breaking protocol.
Shows their commitment to Marin, doesn't it? Willing to face serious consequences.
Absolutely. And then Taryn and Violet just breaking off on their own. That takes incredible trust between them, operating outside the command structure.
Then the Wyvern attack. Violet channels power, even though Taryn warns her not to, gets injured.
And Garrick helps her out. But the big moment
The Sage Irid appears. And Darnett.
is revealed as an irid scorpion tail, a rare, powerful type of dragon. And then she flies for the wards.
A selfless act, knowing the cost.
It's a huge turning point. Violet's power growing and Darna's true nature revealed, and then this immense sacrifice. It really underscores the stakes, just devastating.
After that loss, Violet captures Jack Barlow, tries to get info on the Sages, on Theophany.
And even as his prisoner, she's sharp, resisting his manipulations, trying to gather intel, shows her mental strength, her focus.
Then the hunt for information about the Irids. Jasenia helping out, risking things herself. The mystery around General Cadau's journal. Queen Mariah's list.
It feels like history is being deliberately hidden, doesn't it? Like there are secrets about the dragons, the Irids, the start of all this, that someone doesn't want known. Finding that truth becomes as important as fighting.
And while all this is happening, Xaden starts teaching, giving his squad his edge.
That's a big shift for him, right? Investing in the squad's survival, not just his own, sharing his secrets.
And Sloane, who was initially distant, starts coming around, shows the group solidifying.
Yeah, those shared dangers, they forge bonds. Even with someone like Sloane.
Then, boom, more politics. Prince Halden shows up. Things get awkward between him, Violet, and Xaden.
Very awkward. Xaden is not subtle about being possessive of Violet, is he?
Not at all. Defiant towards Halden. It really highlights how their personal relationship intersects with, royal power and stuff.
And the mission to get the citrine from Anka, ambush again, Aura acts recklessly.
Another reminder. Constant danger. And not everyone has the same judgment under pressure.
Then the meeting with the Deverelli king, Cortland. That's intense.
Halden's betrayal revealed. Shocking.
Right. And Xaden just unleashes his power. But it's Violet, thinking fast, using Endarna's memory, maybe, to broker a deal?
Yeah, she leverages that connection somehow. Gets Agan pardoned, secures an alliance with Tyrandor. Amazing maneuvering.
It really shows how adaptable they are, turning a disaster into, well, something useful. Hard-won victories, like you said.
So then they head to Unbrile, which is different.
Very different. The welcome, the challenge, negotiating weapons, their fighting style is unique, a whole different culture.
And the revelation there about the eggs and the second Krovlin uprising being linked to Feathertails.
That throws another mystery into the mix, doesn't it? Something about dragon history, maybe. Segal's reaction is intense. Clearly, it's sensitive, dangerous knowledge.
Then the storm during the challenge. Mira's worried about Violet wielding, but Violet denies it.
Yeah, that denial is interesting. Why is she hesitant? Is she scared of the power? Doesn't understand it? Or maybe just overwhelmed by everything else?
Could be any of those. But Mira sees it, creates this tension, this foreshadowing.
Things take a really dark turn then with the Irids.
Oh, that news about channeling. No cure. It's irreversible.
Devastating. Leothan explains about the bonds, about juvenile dragons, and Darna hears this. Her connection to them, her heartbreak. It's just awful.
Brutal. And then, as if that wasn't enough, the ambush at Zellyhna.
And losing Traeger.
Yeah. Another painful reminder of the cost. You see the squad's grief, but also They just keep going. Incredible resolve.
That loss leads straight into that really tough conversation about Xaden's channeling. How do they manage it now they know there's no cure?
And Redok, his loyalty, insisting they share the secret, figure it out together.
It says so much about Redok, doesn't it? The risks are huge, but his priority is Xaden, that bond forged in battle.
Contrasted with Xaden's reaction to being called an abomination, you feel his pain, his fear.
That word clearly hits deep. Shows the internal struggle he's facing, the shame, maybe.
Which brings us finally to the big confrontation. Theophany.
The sage and Violet's nightmares, now real.
They arrive at the battle against Drathus. The odds are impossible. And then, Andarna. Again. Lost.
That second loss, it feels so final this time. How does Violet even function after that?
It's almost unimaginable. Xaden's support must be everything at that point.
Absolutely critical, yet somehow, even in that grief, Violet is strategic.
Using her signet, the environment, what she knows about Theophany,
Yeah.
she fights back effectively.
And Fierge's intervention, that revelation about lightning wielders being a counterbalance, that's huge. Changes the game.
It all comes down to that final fight with Theophany at the tower. Violet, just determined to save the city despite everything she's lost.
A powerful climax. She embodies that absolute refusal to give up, protecting others even at immense personal cost.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Onyx Storm, we've followed Violet through just incredible turmoil, personal struggles, massive battles. We've seen the complexities of her relationships, the constant venin threat, the sacrifices, so many sacrifices. Hopefully you feel like you've got a really solid grasp of the core story now, remembering some of those key moments and maybe surprising details.
But wow, it leaves us with some big questions, doesn't it? What does losing an Andarna, truly losing her this time, mean for Violet, for her power? And is Xaden, knowing there's no cure for the channeling, how does that change him, change their relationship? It's already so fraught.
Definitely. And are there even bigger secrets still buried? About the dragons, the history of the Isles, the origins of all this conflict, you have to wonder what else is waiting to be uncovered.
Big questions about loyalty, sacrifice, the weight of power, themes that just echo throughout the whole story.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you'll keep thinking about these ideas, maybe even look at Onyx Storm again with some of this in mind.
Okay, picture this. A war college, right? But it's not some calm library setting. It's constantly being hammered by these really brutal storms.
Yeah, like intense winds, snow. Just a really hostile place to begin with.
Exactly, even before you factor in any fighting. And that's the world we're going to dive into today, using these excerpts called Onyx Storm.
It's all about, dragon riders, these kind of shadowy powers, and what feels like a war that's right on the doorstep.
And for you listening, our goal here as the learner is basically to help you get a handle on this world fast.
Right, get the key players, the main conflicts, the mysteries, but without drowning in every single detail. Like a quick, solid briefing on Onyx Storm.
Perfect way to put it. So we'll sort of guide us through these pieces, point out some interesting bits, and, start connecting some dots for you.
And I'll jump in with maybe some analysis, thinking about what these details could mean for the bigger picture, the sort of why behind it all.
Okay, sounds good. Where should we start? Maybe with the main character.
Yeah, let's talk about Violet Sorrengail. She seems central.
Definitely. And right away, you get a feel for her. There's this line where it says she jumped off to help Sawyer.
It's a small action, maybe, but it says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, like she's willing to put herself out there, take a risk for someone else.
And it kind of hints at the danger level, too, right? If even the riders need that kind of immediate backup, it suggests looking out for each other is maybe just essential for survival there.
Good point. And it sets up her relationship with her dragon, Tarn.
Tarn, yes. Their dynamic is pretty interesting.
It really is. He gives her such a hard time, like, want to make your meeting, don't fall off this time. Classic Tarn.
But underneath the sarcasm, you feel like he's actually concerned, protective.
Totally. Even when he's kind of griping at Violet, he's clearly worried about another dragon, Andarna. He keeps saying flying is unsafe, weather aside, because they're hunting dark wielders.
Dark wielders. Okay, that definitely catches your ear.
Right. Sounds ominous.
It does. It's not just like another army. It hints at something maybe magical, more mysterious anyway.
And Tarn being so protective of Andarna, saying she can't be left off patrols.
Yeah, that makes you think Andarna isn't just any dragon. Maybe she's key somehow, or particularly vulnerable to these dark wielders.
Could be. We also get this really physical sense of their bond, Violet and Tarn. When he lands, his claws hitting the ice. It says it vibrates every bone in her body, causes her real pain.
So it's not just this easy fantasy connection. There's a real physical toll. It underlines how demanding that world is.
Yeah. And even with that bond, Terran gives this really sharp warning. He says, do not mistake my unflinching support of you, my mate, and Andarna for any form of faith in him. And he's talking about Xaden.
Ooh, okay. That is loaded.
Isn't it?
So much going on there. He calls her my mate, showing that deep bond, but then draws this hard line about Xaden. Major distrust signal.
Yeah, it points to some serious friction, maybe political, maybe personal, right inside their own group.
Definitely feels like a fault line.
And those storms we mentioned, they're not just mood setting. They actually mess things up for them. Violet's thinking, how can anyone see topography or our squad mates, let alone spot a dark wielder hundreds of feet below in this mess?
So the environment itself is like another enemy. It blinds them, makes defense harder.
Exactly. It really hammers home how precarious their whole situation is. Even inside the War College walls, it feels dangerous.
Makes you wonder what kind of person thrives there, or even just survives. The resilience needed must be incredible.
Okay, moving on a bit. These excerpts are just packed with hints about bigger stuff. Conflicts, secret.
Little breadcrumbs everywhere.
Totally. So besides these dark wielders, there's this threat of treason. Imogen, another character, she reacts really strongly when Violet mentions telling only the writers about something Mira's doing. Imogen snaps, if we get caught, it's treason, but if the flyers do.
Ah, so there's a difference. Writers versus flyers.
Yeah, what do you make of that distinction?
Well, it suggests maybe a hierarchy or different divisions. Maybe flyers face much harsher consequences for the same actions. It points to some kind of internal structure, maybe inequality.
And Violet finishes the thought with, it's war.
Wow. Okay, so whatever Mira's up to is serious enough to potentially trigger actual war if revealed the wrong way or by the wrong people. High stakes.
Definitely. Then there's this smaller moment, almost funny, where Imogen yells, Rydok, did you freeze this door shut? And Rydos sounds exasperated.
Yeah, it makes them feel more real, right?
It does. Like, even with war looming, they're dealing with everyday annoyances, maybe someone misusing their powers accidentally.
And it tells us Rydok can freeze things? Maybe some kind of ice power? Could be useful.
Could be. And this idea of a rebellion, it seems to be simmering. Imogen kind of teases Violet, I can't wait for him to discover you're leading your own rebellion.
And Violet denies it, right?
Yeah, she's like, it's not a rebellion. I'm just doing whatever it takes to save Xaden. But, you know, actions speak louder.
Exactly. Rebellions often start with personal motives, right? Someone acts to protect someone they care about, and suddenly others are following, even if leadership wasn't the plan. Her focus on Xaden could easily snowball.
And we get this really chilling glimpse of how the enemy operates. Violet takes someone down fast, and Rye's surprised.
How did Violet know they were an enemy?
Well, this is the creepy part. Violet says, a scribe would have run toward the archives, which leads to the realization that's how they fed without notice. They're dressed as scribes.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's clever and deeply unsettling.
Isn't it? Enemies disguised as scholars.
It speaks volumes about their cunning. And it means trust inside the college must be like a completely shot. Anyone could be an enemy.
And the word fed, that sounds really sinister. What are these enemies? Vampiric? Parasitic somehow.
Yeah, fed is a very specific, unnerving word choice there. Adds another layer of threat.
Okay, let's shift to relationships. All these connections and loyalties seem super complex. Violet and Xaden are obviously key, even with Terran being wary.
We see those little moments, right? Holding hands, a kiss.
Yeah, but it's contrasted with this tension. Like, Violet thinks, I might trust him, but he sure as done doesn't trust himself, especially about letting go of control.
Done. Interesting. Wonder who or what that refers to.
Yeah, no idea. Some saying a person.
Could be anything. A god, maybe. A legend.
Yeah.
But using it as a benchmark for Xaden's lack of self-trust, it shows how deep his issues run. It's not just a simple romance. It's tangled up with his own demons.
Totally. And her friends, her squad, Imogen, Riss, Red, Rizhok, Garrick, they seem really protective of her too.
You see them showing up, looking out for her. Rhea and Quinn waiting in the infirmary. Reddock maybe being cautious around Terran.
It paints a picture of a tight group, doesn't it? Finding solidarity in all that chaos.
Absolutely. Those bonds probably keep him sane, maybe even alive. That loyalty is a counterweight to all the danger in politics.
Then there's Violet's sister, Mara. She brings in a whole other layer. Her argument with their brother, Brennan. It's intense.
What does she say?
She accuses him, basically, of sending her to check the status of the wards just so he'd know how long you have before using our sister like a gaming chip.
Oof. Harsh wards. So, like, magical defenses.
Seems likely, yeah. Protecting the college, maybe the whole area.
And if they're weakening, as Mira implies, that's bad. Really bad.
Critical vulnerability. And Mira's accusation suggests Brennan's making cold calculations, maybe willing to manipulate Violet for the sake of these wards. Family drama mixed with high-stakes politics.
Classic. And then there's Andarna again. She seems way more important than just, another dragon.
Definitely. They mention searching for others of her kind, like they're rare, or have special abilities.
And Taryn preparing to carry heavier weight for longer distances because of her. Plus that secret note about Andarna's demands.
Right, and those demands apparently include pardons for people who flew for Aricia. That sounds huge, politically.
Okay, so flew for Aricia, that suggests a past conflict. A rebellion, maybe? Against whoever's in charge now.
Seems like.
And Andarna, or her kind, has enough clout to force pardons for these former enemies. That's serious leverage. Maybe it's tied to the wards. Or just her power. It hints at old divides reopening.
Which brings us straight into all the political stuff. The wards are failing. Mira says maybe 6 months before total collapse.
6 months, that is not a lot of time. Puts immense pressure on everyone.
Huge pressure. And Andarna's demands, the ones Llewellyn is involved with, they lead to these pardons. People who sided with Aricia are coming back.
That's a massive political shift. It shows how desperate they must be for whatever Andarna offers. They're making big concessions.
The scenarium sounds like a council or government, and they must have agreed to this.
Which really highlights Andarna's importance. Her cooperation must be seen as absolutely vital, maybe for fixing the wards. Or fighting the dark wielders.
And there's talk of an accord with Aricia being signed, so formal negotiations, maybe trying to unite against a common enemy.
But it's clearly not easy. Trust seems...
Yeah, and the mention of a mangled list of demands and Violet's shattered expectations implies these talks are messy.
Totally. It sounds like an environment where alliances are shaky and everyone's watching their back. Negotiation under pressure.
We also hear about this scenarium having authority. Colonel Ados mentions in Article 8, like there's a legal code.
So it's not complete chaos. There are rules, a governing body, even in wartime. That structure will shape how things play out.
Okay, let's talk combat. The danger feels constant. Violet's skill with the dagger when she takes down that disguised scribe.
Right, Rhea's surprised. Damn. Sometimes I forget how good you are at that.
It tells you Violet isn't just relying on her dragon. She's got her own skills, maybe unexpectedly good ones.
Yeah, speaks to the harsh reality again. You need to be able to defend yourself, maybe in ways people don't expect.
And flying itself sounds terrifying. Wyvern attacks, dark wielders.
Dragons are obviously key in warfare.
Yeah.
But even training seems focused on these specific threats. Xaden pushing them to learn weaknesses against dark wielders during sparring.
It shows they're adapting, trying to figure out how to fight this particular enemy. Collaboration seems key to survival there.
Absolutely. They need every edge they can get.
And finally, all the mysteries, which honestly is part of the fun, right? We're left with so many questions.
Definitely. Like, what's the full deal with Andarna's kind? Why are they so important?
And Violet's father's research, it's hinted that it holds secrets. Plus, these mentions of past uprisings, forgotten history, feels like the past is about to crash into the present.
Those unanswered questions are what pull you in, right?
Yeah.
The history, the secrets. They're probably tangled up in the main plot somehow. History repeating itself, maybe?
Could be. We also just don't know the enemy's full strength or their endgame. Or what's the deal with places like Deverelli Isle or the Emerald Sea? Are they important strategically?
All these unknowns build the suspense. It hints at a much larger world, more complex conflicts than just what we see at the college.
So for you, listening, the main takeaways from this deep dive into Onyx Storm are kind of this. You've got a war college, basically under siege by storms and enemies.
The Dragon Rider bonds are super important, powerful, but the politics are messy, full of secrets and distrust.
Yeah, and dangerous enemies are hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Plus our main character, Violet, is juggling dangerous missions, intense relationships.
All while the world's magical defenses are crumbling. Fast.
It paints this picture of a world right on the edge, full of intrigue, personal struggles, and danger from every side.
The Rider-Dragon connection's powerful, yeah. But secrets and betrayal are everywhere, casting this shadow.
So here's something to think about. Those wards are failing, 6 months maybe. What kind of drastic, desperate things might they have to do?
Good question. What lines will they cross when time runs out?
And what secrets from the past, maybe from Violet's father's work, could change everything? How will these tangled relationships, especially between Violet, Xaden, Tarn, and Darna, how will they decide what happens next?
Yeah, the ticking clock, the buried history, the complex bonds, it all sets the stage for some major developments. Lots to ponder.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this. We hope this gave you a good feel for this world and maybe sparked some curiosity.
Yeah, hope it was helpful. Until next time.
Keep thinking about those questions.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share with your known.